know what it is that makes a drag show family friendly. Because if you follow it to its logical conclusion, you can slap family-friendly titles on anything.
I love how you can tell exactly what's going on in these people's minds by the sheer level of detail they put into their descriptions of people doing drag.
You can have family-friendly gentlemen's clubs, family-friendly strip shows, family-friendly 50 Shades of Grey read-alouds. Will you approve my flyer if I want to host in all the sex secrets of the Kama Sutra for kids and families if it's family-friendly? That's my question.
Wow.
What is it about a grown man, and I honestly, sincerely, as a woman, mean this, what is it about a grown man costumed in a sparkly bra with augmented boobs busting out, a leather miniskirt barely covering his twerking ass with tuck tape on his front while spreading his fish-netted legs as he writhes on the ground, grinding his groin next to a minor, family-friendly? You owe us an answer.
No.
And you know, you don't get to hide by just taking something down off Peachtree and calling it a day.
Before we get to analysis, we just gotta be clear that what she's talking about is not the type of drag show that anybody is saying should be around children. That is all in her imagination. So that video is obviously deeply, deeply unhinged, but it is part of a larger campaign among Republicans to try and paint both drag and being trans as in something that's inherently sexual or deviant, when in reality, trans people just exist, just like literally anybody else. Nothing inherently sexual about that. And the same is true with drag, where it's literally just an art form that can take many varieties. I mean, quite literally, there are countless children's cartoons and television shows where people do drag on a regular basis. I mean, we're just gonna sit here and pretend that Bugs Bunny isn't running around doing drag on a regular basis? Is that what we're gonna do? We're just gonna make stuff up now and just live in a fantasy land. But no, these conservatives have basically arbitrarily and out of nowhere decided all of a sudden that drag is gonna be their target. And it's because of trans people. Let's be very, very clear. The reason why Republicans are targeting drag is because banning drag effectively means banning trans people from public, because if you can say that drag is somehow inherently sexually deviant and not to be allowed around children, well, then how do you determine between when somebody is doing drag or when somebody is just trans? Well, of course, that distinction isn't really going to matter to police officers in the United States of America, and it's especially not going to matter to your everyday conservative in the United States. And so what ends up happening is a ban on drag is the closest thing that these right-wingers can get to banning trans people from public. And so that is what they're trying to do. Because if there's one thing that conservatives hate more than anything else, it is people just living their lives and being happy. And it's really honestly sick and twisted for these conservatives to come in pretending like they're here to like protect children, when right-wing and religious organizations like the Catholic Church or the Boy Scouts of America are literally flooded with like abuse scandals. Not to mention the fact of like right-wing churches being flooded with abuse scandals in general. Or, you know, the fact that like in a handful of Republican-led states, they literally allow like child marriage, you know, like marriage people under the age of 18 and defend it. They quite literally pretend that it's like some sort of staple of society. And these are the people running around trying to say that they're protecting children from a drag queen reading a story to children in a library. But once again, it was never about drag queens. Drag queens are literally just the vector through which these Republicans want to ban trans people from existence. Because what I will tell you about these conservative parents that are all worried about their children is that trans people reveal what they don't want to admit more than anything else. And that is the very simple fact that a lot of conservative parents simply do not know the first thing about their own children. Because conservative parents almost universally respond to their child being trans by saying that there were no signs, there was no way of knowing, it's impossible. And not wanting to come to grips with the fact that for one reason or another, they really don't know their kids as well as they thought they did. And so instead of coming to terms with that reality, they decide to blame everyone else in society and say that it's some sort of grand conspiracy to turn their kid trans, that it must have been their friends, it must have been television, it must have been the drag queen doing story hour. And it couldn't possibly have been the very simple fact that these self-centered right-wing parents that want to think of their own children as property possibly don't even know the children that they theoretically raised. So yeah, it hits a real sore spot for a lot of these conservatives. Because heaven forbid children be their own people. Heaven forbid children grow up to be themselves and be happy. But because of this outrage from Republicans, and because of the fact that so many centrists out there, especially people who work at the New York Times, for example, love to pretend that these anti-trans bigots have some sort of legitimacy to their arguments. Like all of this isn't just very well established science. As if we don't know that hormones literally do just make trans people's lives better. As though there's some sort of question about whether or not gender-affirming care more broadly is something that should be allowed, when the medical community has already really come to conclusions on this. So instead of accepting reality and letting other people be themselves, these right-wingers hyper-fixate on the existence of trans people, and for whatever reason, cannot get intimate details about theoretical trans people and drag shows out of their minds, all aiming to ban trans people from existence, trying to deny healthcare to not only trans children, but even trans adults, and then they have the audacity to say that we're the ones that are threatening children. When in actuality, unaccepting parents can be one of the biggest barriers to success and living a happy life for trans people in the United States. Because the unfortunate reality is that a lot of trans children don't make it past childhood. At the end of the day, it's incredibly sick and sad that these people get so infuriated at the idea of other people just being happy